Solving radical equations. What's a radical equation? A radical equation is an equation that has actually a square root in it. It could be more than one. An example could be something like this. Square root of 3x equals 18. That's a radical equation. Or it could be something like the square root of 5n minus the square root of n minus 4 equals 2. That's a radical equation. Or you could have y plus 7 equals the square root of 2y minus 5. All of these are radical equations. So how do we solve radical equations? Well, our goal is to get rid of the square root. So what you're going to find out is if you only have one square root, like this one and that one, your goal is to isolate the square root first. Make sure the square root is on one side by itself. And once you do that, then we'll square both sides, then we'll try to finish it. So let's see. Let's take an example. Solve for x. The square root of x minus 2 equals 7. Now again, my goal is to isolate the square root. Well, to isolate the square root, that means the minus 2 is on the wrong side. I can take the minus 2 and move it to this side, either by adding 2 to both sides or change side, change sign. So if I take that minus 2 to the right side, it becomes 7, and change the sign of that, that becomes a plus 2. The square root of x equals 9. So step number 1, isolate the square root. We did that. So this is step number 1. Isolate the square root. Step number 2, once you finish isolating the square root, you want to square both sides. So let's square both sides of the equation. I'm going to square this now, and I'm going to square this. And the reason we square both sides, because if you remember from last class, when you square the square root, you lose the square root sign. X equals, what is 9 squared? That's 81. And step number 3, finally, is really check your answer. Check your answer. So if I take the 81, plug it in. What is the square root of 81? 9 minus the 2, does that equal to 7? Square root of 81 is 9. 9 minus 2 is 7. So yes, it does work. Let's try another one. The square root of x plus 1 minus 4 equals to 0. Again, isolate the square root. To isolate, I need to take the minus 4 to that side, and when you change side, you change sign. X plus 1 equals positive 4. After you isolate the square root, which we just did here, let's square both sides. Again, when you square a square root, you lose the square root sign. X plus 1 equals, what is 4 squared? 16. Take the plus 1 there, it becomes a minus 1. X equals 15. And if you check the answer, when x is 15, what's 15? Let's check your answer. is the square root of 15 plus 1 minus the 4, does that equal to 0? That's the square root of 16. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 minus 4, is that a 0? Yes, it is. So that is correct. Now let's try one where there might be a little problem there. Let's try that one. Isolate the square root. Bring the plus 2 there. So you have the square root of 3t minus 7 equals a negative 2. Now I know this problem does not have a solution. I can stop right there. Why? Look at this, the square root being a negative number. There is no way on earth that the square root will give you a negative value. So this does not have a solution. But if you didn't see that, let's continue. So I didn't see it. Square both sides. Three t minus 7 equals 4. Take the minus 7 to this side. 3t equals 4 plus 7. What's 4 plus 7? 11. What is t equal to? 11 over 3. Now let's check that answer. Let's see if that answer works. 3 times t. T is what? 11 over 3. Minus the 7. Plus the 2. Does that equal to 0? This 3 cancels that 3. So you end up with 11 minus 7 plus 2. Does that equal to 0? 11 minus 7 is 4. Is 2 plus 2 equal to 0? Does 4 equal to 0? No, it does not. So this is not a solution. It's not. So no solution to this problem. No solution. Again, if you saw that earlier the way I saw that, a square root being a negative number, you know this problem will not have a solution. But sometimes you don't see that. If you finish the math and check your answer, make sure you check your answer. If you check your answer, you will see it doesn't work. Let's try this one. Two n plus 5 equals 4n minus 3. When you have two square roots, you always want to make sure you have one on each side. It is easier that way. So make sure you have one square root on this side and one on that side. Now, to get rid of the square root, we square both sides. When you square the square root, this ends up being 2n plus 5. And this one is what? 4n minus 3. I can subtract 5 from each side. Two n equals 4n minus the 8. Subtract 4n from each side. My goal is to put all the n's on one side, all the numbers on the opposite side. So that's what I'm trying to do. What is 2n minus 4n? Negative 2n equals negative 8. And to get n, we're going to divide both sides by negative 2, which is a 4. Let's check the answer, make sure it works. I squished everything there. Let's check the answer. Here we go. The square root of 2n, n is 4. 2 times 4 plus 5. Does that equal to, I'm asking the question, does that equal to the square root of 4 times n? N is 4 minus 3. Let's see. What is 2 times 4? 8. 8 plus 5, which is what? 13. Is that the same as 4 times 4 is 16 minus 3? What is 16 minus 3? 13. Yes, they are. So that is the solution. The square root, let's try this one. 4x plus 7 minus the square root of 6x minus 11 equals 0. Notice again, you have two square roots there. Make sure you have one on each side. Isolate them. Let's take this one, move it to that side. And if you move it, you change that sign. Anytime you change side, you change the sign. So this one is equal to that. Now, to get rid of the square root, we need to square both sides. Four x plus 7 equals 6x minus 11. I need all the x's on one side, all the numbers on the opposite side. Doesn't matter which side. Maybe I'll move the 4x to this side, move the negative 11 to that side. When I bring that negative 11 to this side, becomes 11 plus the 7, or positive 11 if you want to, equals, here's the 6x, I didn't move that one. When I bring the 4x to this side, becomes a negative 4x. 11 and 7 is what? 18 equals 2x, x equals to 9. Again, check your answer. Is the square root of 4 times 9 plus 7 minus the square root of 6 times 9 minus 11, does that equal to 0? 4 times 9 is what? 36. 36 plus 7. That's a 43. Minus 6 times 9. 54 minus the 11. That would be 43. Is that equal to 0? Yes, it is. Okay, let's make them a little bit bigger. Y minus the square root of y minus 2 equals 2. Again, just like before, you want to isolate the square root. You can move them any way you want to. I can move the y to that side, make it a negative y. If I do that, I have negative the square root of y minus 2 equals 2 minus y. And once you finish isolating the square root, next step is square both sides. Now when you square this one, the minus becomes a plus, and the square root will disappear. So that's a y minus 2. To solve this one, to square it, you're going to multiply it by itself. Remember, that's the FOIL method. So that'll be this times this, that's a 4, negative 2y, negative 2 more y, that's negative 4y, and this one plus y squared. Now what we have is a quadratic equation. You move everything to one side and you're trying to solve it. So if I move everything to one side, I'll have 0 equals 4 minus 4y plus y squared. Now when I bring that y to that side, it becomes a negative y. When I bring that negative 2 to this side, it becomes a plus 2. Let's clean it and reshuffle it, put them in order. That would be y squared minus 5y plus 6. Now, quadratic equation, one of the ways to solve it is by factoring. So if you factor this, what do you have? Y minus 2, y minus 3. That will give me the plus 6 and the negative 5y. You're multiplying two things and your answer is 0. That means one of them has to be 0. Or both zeros. Now to solve this, y equals to 2. Solve this, y equals to 3. So we have two answers here. Do they both work? Let's check the answers. Let's check the plus 2 first. Always check them with the original problem right here. Is 2 minus the square root of 2 minus 2, does that equal to 2? That's a 0. 2 minus the square root of 0, which is 0, does that equal to 2? Yes. Let's check the 3 now. Is 3 minus the square root 3 minus 2, does that equal to 2? That's the square root of 1. And the square root of 1 happens to be 1. Is 3 minus 1, does that equal to 2? Yes, it is. So both answers are good. 2 and 3 are both good answers. Try another one like it. 1 plus the square root of 1 minus x equals x. Again, isolate the square root. Take the plus 1 to that side, becomes a minus 1. Square both sides. This will be 1 minus x. This will be x squared minus 2x if you FOIL it, plus 1. Again, the way we came up with this answer is x minus 1 times x minus 1, the FOIL method. X times x, x squared, minus x plus 1, which is what? X squared minus 2x plus the 1. So that's how I came up with that answer. I FOILed that in my head, but that's what the answer is. Now move everything to one side so you can factor that. So this becomes 0 equals x squared. And when you bring the minus x to this side, it becomes a plus x. What's negative 2x plus x? That's negative 1x. When you bring that 1 to this side, it's a negative 1. What is 1 minus the 1? That's a 0. Now let's factor this. You can factor an x out. What's left? X minus 1. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve it. So we have two answers. We got the 0 and the 1. Do they both work? Check answers. Let's check the 0. Is 1 plus the square root of 1 minus 0. Does that equal to 0? 1 plus 1. Is 1 plus 1, does that equal to 0? Is 2 equal to 0? No. So 0 does not work. So this is out of the picture. Doesn't work. Let's try the 1. Is 1 plus the square root of 1 minus 1, does that equal to 1? 1 plus the square root of 0, does that equal to 1? Square root of 0 is 0, that's a 1. 1 is equal to 1, so this answer is good. That answer is not. So you only have one solution to that, and that is x equals to 1. Let's try another one, last one, with radical equations. Let's say we have this one, n squared plus 11 equals 3 times the square root of n minus 1. Again, the good news here, we have the square roots isolated, one on each side. They were nice to us. So now let's square both sides. When you square this, you lose the square root. When you square the 3, that's a 9 times, because that's a multiplication here. When you square the square root, you just lose the square root. So you square the 3, becomes a 9, and you square the square root, you just lose the square root. This is 9 minus 9 times 1, which is 9. 9n minus 9. Move everything to this side. N squared. When you bring that 9n to this side, becomes a minus 9n. When you bring the minus 9 to this side, it becomes a plus 9. Plus 9 plus 11, that's plus 20. Again, I need to factor that. That's a plus. That tells me both signs the same as this. So they're both going to be negative. 20 is 4 times 5. That'll give me a 20. And negative 5 and negative 4 will give me the negative 9n that I need. So that's the correct factoring. We set each factor equal to 0 and we solve it. So two solutions, 4 and 5. Let's check the answers, make sure they work. Let's try the 4. Let's see if it works. The square root. 4 squared is what? 16. 16 plus 11. Does that equal to 3 times the square root of 4 minus 1? This is 3 the square root of 3. This is the square root of 27. Can I simplify the square root 27? Well, 27 is what? 9 times 3. And what is the square root of 9? Isn't that a 3? So it does work. 4 actually works fine. This side is equal to this. Let's try the 5. The square root of 5 squared is 25 plus the 11. Does that equal to 3 times? That's 5 minus 1. I'll work on the right side first. That's the square root of 5 minus 1, which is 4. Remember, that's a multiplication. 3 times the square root of 4, which is 2. And what is 3 times 2? 6. This one, we add them. 25 and 11, 36. And what is the square root of 36? That's a 6. Is 6 equal to 6? Yes. Good and good. And that's how we solve quadratic equations.